The Galactic Council chamber was a masterpiece of alien engineering, its vaulted ceiling glittering with stars that mimicked the night skies of 1,000-member worlds. Holographic projections of serene landscapes adorned the walls, creating an illusion of tranquility. Yet the mood inside was anything but calm. Representatives from the galaxy's most powerful civilizations sat on elevated platforms, their expressions a mix of disdain and boredom. At the center of the chamber, Earth's ambassador Dranok IV stood resolute, his voice ringing out against the indifferent silence. "Esteemed members of the Council," Forth began, his tone steady despite the weight of hundreds of eyes scrutinizing him. "Humanity has been patient. We have honored the accords, respected your boundaries, and maintained peace. Yet today, I stand here to warn you. The Dranok Empire's recent incursions into the Sol system are not acts of diplomacy. They are acts of war." A ripple of amusement passed through the chamber, subtle but unmistakable. High Chancellor Valrek, a towering figure with iridescent scales and a voice like grinding stone, leaned forward. His golden eyes shimmered with condescension. "Ambassador Forth," Valrek said, his tone slow and deliberate, "Earth is a minor participant in this council. Your planet's contributions are negligible, your technology primitive. Why should we concern ourselves with what amounts to a border skirmish?" Forth's jaw tightened, but he maintained his composure. "Because the Dranok Empire's intentions are clear. They seek to dominate the Sol system, and they will not stop there. Today it's Earth. Tomorrow it could be one of your core worlds." A soft murmur spread through the chamber, but it was quickly stifled by a dismissive wave from Valrek. "Earth's bravado is noted, but the Dranok Empire has assured us their actions are merely precautionary. Perhaps your species should consider compliance." The word hung in the air like a death knell. Forth straightened, his voice sharper now. "Compliance is not an option. Humanity will defend itself, and I strongly urge this council to reconsider its stance. We will not be passive prey." The chamber erupted into laughter, a cacophony of derision that echoed off the walls. Forth's hands clenched at his sides as the representatives dismissed him without a second thought. High Chancellor Valrek tapped a clawed finger against his podium. "This session is concluded," Valrek announced. "Earth's concerns are noted and will be filed." As Forth left the chamber, his steps measured but heavy, he activated a concealed comm device on his wrist. "They're not listening, Commander," he said softly. "It's up to you now." Thousands of light years away, deep beneath the surface of Earth, Commander Elias Voss stood in the nerve center of humanity's most guarded secret, the War Vault, a subterranean fortress buried beneath layers of reinforced alloy and cloaked in stealth fields, was a testament to human ingenuity and resilience. Massive holographic displays filled the room, each one showing real-time data on the approaching galactic fleet, Earth's hidden defenses, and contingency plans meticulously crafted over decades. Elias was a man of quiet intensity. His gray-streaked hair and scarred features spoke of a life spent on the front lines, but his sharp blue eyes burned with unwavering focus. Standing beside him were Captain Mira Erix, the fearless leader of Earth's stealth fighter squadrons, and Dr. Kale Riker, the brilliant yet conflicted mind behind humanity's most advanced weaponry. "They laughed him out of the room," Elias said, his voice low but firm. "Exactly as we expected." Mira smirked, her arms crossed. "Typical council arrogance. They think we're still playing with sticks and stones." Kyle, his hands clasped behind his back, frowned. "They're not entirely wrong. On the surface, Earth appears vulnerable. But if we show them everything we've been working on..." Elias cut him off. "We're not showing them anything unless we have to. Surprise is our only advantage." Kyle nodded, though his unease was evident. "And if they push too hard?" Elias turned to the central display, where the Galactic Fleet's formation was projected. "Then we push back harder." The Dranok fleet began its approach, a massive armada of sleek silver warships bristling with weaponry. At its helm was Supreme Commander Vorn Talek, a seasoned veteran whose reputation for swift, brutal campaigns was well earned. He stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eviscerator, a vessel so vast it cast a shadow over smaller planets. "Scan the planet," Vorn commanded, his voice cold and precise. "Confirm their defenses." A subordinate, a wiry creature with insectoid features, worked feverishly at a glowing console. "Minimal orbital platforms detected. No significant fleet presence. Ground-based defenses are sparse and outdated." Vorn allowed himself a faint smile, typical of prey that has forgotten how to survive. "Begin the assault. Deploy the first wave." On Earth, Alarms blared through the war vault. Elias watched as the holographic displays updated with the incoming fleet's movements. Dozens of Dranok warships broke formation, descending toward the planet with predatory precision. "They're testing us," Mira said, her tone laced with anticipation. "Standard probing tactic." Elias nodded. "They'll find more than they bargained for." "Kale, are the countermeasures ready?" Kale hesitated for a fraction of a second before answering. "Yes. The orbital decoys are primed and the stealth grid is active." "Good," Elias said. "Activate the decoys. Let them think we're scrambling to defend ourselves." From hidden launch bays around the planet, dozens of decoy satellites powered up, projecting false signatures of massive defensive platforms. The Dranok fleet, interpreting the data as genuine, adjusted their formation to counter the apparent threat. "They're buying it," Mira said with a grin. "Hook, line, and sinker." Elias didn't smile. "They'll realize it's a ruse soon enough. We need to be ready for the real fight." Back on the Eviscerator, Commander Vorn's satisfaction began to waver as reports flooded in. The decoy platforms seemed numerous but oddly static, their movements lacking the fluidity of an organized defense. "Something's not right," Vorn muttered, his eyes narrowing. "Adjust targeting protocols. Focus fire on." Before he could finish, a massive explosion rocked one of his lead ships. Alarms blared as more explosions erupted across his formation, targeting critical systems with surgical precision. "Where are those coming from?" Vorn bellowed. The answer came in the form of a transmission. Elias's voice, calm and steady, filled the bridge of the Eviscerator. "You came to Earth expecting easy prey," Elias said. "You've made a mistake." Vorn's fists clenched as he barked orders. "Find their weapons platforms. Eliminate them." But there were no visible platforms. No identifiable source of the attacks. The explosions were the result of Earth's hidden orbital strike network, a system so advanced it operated entirely from stealth mode, invisible to the Dranok sensors. "They laughed him out of the room," Elias said, his voice low but firm. "Exactly as we expected." Mira smirked, her arms crossed. "Typical Council arrogance. They think we're still playing with sticks and stones." Kyle, his hands clasped behind his back, frowned. "They're not entirely wrong. On the surface, Earth appears vulnerable. But if we show them everything we've been working on..." Elias cut him off. "We're not showing them anything unless we have to. Surprise is our only advantage." Kyle nodded, though his unease was evident. "And if they push too hard?" Elias turned to the central display, where the Galactic Fleet's formation was projected. "Then we push back harder." The Dranok fleet began its approach, a massive armada of sleek silver warships bristling with weaponry. At its helm was Supreme Commander Vorn Talek, a seasoned veteran whose reputation for swift, brutal campaigns was well earned. He stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eviscerator, a vessel so vast it cast a shadow over smaller planets. "Scan the planet," Vorn commanded, his voice cold and precise. "Confirm their defenses." A subordinate, a wiry creature with insectoid features, worked feverishly at a glowing console. "Minimal orbital platforms detected. No significant fleet presence. Ground-based defenses are sparse and outdated." Vorn allowed himself a faint smile, typical of prey that has forgotten how to survive. "Begin the assault. Deploy the first wave." On Earth, alarms blared through the war vault. Elias watched as the holographic displays updated with the incoming fleet's movements. Dozens of Dranok warships broke formation, descending toward the planet with predatory precision. "They're testing us," Mira said, her tone laced with anticipation. "Standard probing tactic." Elias nodded. "They'll find more than they bargained for." "Kale, are the countermeasures ready?" Kale hesitated for a fraction of a second before answering. "Yes. The orbital decoys are primed and the stealth grid is active." "Good," Elias said. "Activate the decoys. Let them think we're scrambling to defend ourselves." From hidden launch bays around the planet, dozens of decoy satellites powered up, projecting false signatures of massive defensive platforms. The Dranok fleet, interpreting the data as genuine, adjusted their formation to counter the apparent threat. "They're buying it," Mira said with a grin. "Hook, line, and sinker." Elias didn't smile. "They'll realize it's a ruse soon enough. We need to be ready for the real fight." Back on the Eviscerator, Commander Vorn's satisfaction began to waver as reports flooded in. The decoy platforms seemed numerous but oddly static, their movements lacking the fluidity of an organized defense. "Something's not right," Vorn muttered, his eyes narrowing. "Adjust targeting protocols. Focus fire on." Before he could finish, a massive explosion rocked one of his lead ships. Alarms blared as more explosions erupted across his formation, targeting critical systems with surgical precision. "Where are those coming from?" Vorn bellowed. The answer came in the form of a transmission. Elias's voice, calm and steady, filled the bridge of the eviscerator. "You came to Earth expecting easy prey," Elias said. "You've made a mistake." Vorn's fists clenched as he barked orders. "Find their weapons platforms. Eliminate them." But there were no visible platforms. No identifiable source of the attacks. The explosions were the result of Earth's hidden orbital strike network, a system so advanced it operated entirely from stealth mode, invisible to the Dranok sensors. The insectoid subordinate scurried to respond, its mandibles clicking nervously. "Enemy defenses remain unclear. We're detecting faint energy signatures across their orbit, but nothing definitive. Their tactics suggest advanced counterintelligence systems." Vorn slammed a fist onto the console, his golden eyes narrowing. "Primitive species don't develop advanced counterintelligence. Something is wrong. They're hiding their true capabilities." Another officer, a feline-like alien with sharp features, stepped forward. "If they're hiding something, we force them to reveal it. A full-scale assault will strip away their defenses." Vorn considered this, his frustration tempered by cold logic. "Launch the second wave. No more probing. Send in the frigates and heavy fighters. I want their defenses overwhelmed." The War Vault's alarms blared as the Dranok fleet's second wave broke formation, descending toward Earth like a swarm of predatory birds. Elias watched the tactical display with grim focus, as clusters of frigates and fighters lit up the screen, their trajectories converging on Earth's atmosphere. "Here we go," Mira muttered, her fingers dancing over the controls. "Squadrons are in position, just give the word." Elias glanced at Kyle. "Do the stealth defenses hold?" Kyle's expression was grim. "For now. If they get too close, they might detect the neural uplink team." Elias clenched his jaw. "We're not letting that happen. Mira, deploy the squadrons. Keep their focus on the decoys and away from the uplink." Mira grinned, her confidence returning. "With pleasure." From concealed launch bays across Earth, sleek stealth fighters roared into the sky, their dark hulls blending seamlessly with the stars. Mira's voice crackled over the comms as she directed the squadrons with precision. "Keep it tight, people. Engage at will, but don't let them draw you out. We're ghosts. Let's remind them why they fear the dark." The fighters engaged the Dranok fleet in a dazzling display of agility and firepower. Plasma beams and missile trails lit up the sky as the stealth fighters wove through the enemy ranks, exploiting every weakness in their formation. The Dranok frigates, though heavily armored, struggled to track their elusive targets. Elias observed the battle from the War Vault, his hands gripping the edge of the console. "Mira's squadrons are holding their own, but the frigates are adapting. We need more pressure." Kyle hesitated before speaking. "We could deploy the AI drones. They're still untested in live combat, but they might give us the edge we need." Elias considered this, weighing the risks. The drones were a marvel of engineering, autonomous, adaptive, and deadly, but their deployment risked exposing Earth's true technological capabilities. "Do it," Elias said finally. "Deploy them in support of Mira's fighters. No direct engagement unless necessary." In orbit, the Dranok fleet began to realize they were facing more than just decoys and standard defenses. As the AI drones joined the fray, their sleek forms darting through the chaos with surgical precision, the tide of battle shifted further in Earth's favor. The drones coordinated seamlessly with the stealth fighters, targeting critical systems on the Dranok frigates and rendering them vulnerable. Vorn Talik watched the unfolding battle with growing unease. "These tactics, this technology, it's not what we expected." The feline officer beside him growled softly. "They're not the prey we thought they were." Vorn's golden eyes narrowed. "There's something far more dangerous." In the War Vault, Elias's focus remained unshaken as reports flooded in. The neural uplink team had completed their repairs, ensuring the stealth grid remained intact. Mira's squadrons had forced the Dranok fleet into a defensive posture, buying critical time for the next phase of Earth's strategy. But not everything was going smoothly. A sudden alert flashed on Kyle's console, and his face paled. "We have a saboteur." Elias turned sharply. "Explain." Kyle's fingers flew across the controls. "Someone accessed the secondary defense systems without authorization. They've planted a worm in the orbital strike network. If it activates, it'll disable our weapons." Elias's voice was ice cold. "Can you neutralize it?" "I'll try," Kyle said, his tone frantic. "But if I fail, we lose our most critical advantage." Mira's voice cut through the tension. "Whoever did this is still on the grid. Find them, and I'll deal with it." Elias nodded, his jaw tight. Kale tracked the saboteur, Mira, prepare for extraction. We're not letting anyone compromise this operation. As the second wave of the Dranok fleet faltered under Earth's countermeasures, a new battle unfolded within. The saboteurs' actions threatened to tip the scales, but Elias's unyielding determination ensured that humanity would not falter. "Hold the line," Elias said, his voice a command and a promise. This fight isn't over yet. The battle for Earth had begun in earnest. High above the planet's atmosphere, the second wave of the Dranok fleet engaged Earth's defenses, pushing the limits of Elias Voss's meticulously planned strategies. The Galactic Council had grossly underestimated humanity, but Elias knew this moment was critical. A single misstep could unravel years of preparation. Inside the war vault, the tension was palpable. Holographic projections of the battle lit up the darkened room, showing the chaotic dance of Earth's stealth fighters and AI drones against the looming presence of Dranok frigates and swarming fighter escorts. "Status update," Elias barked, his eyes never leaving the central display. Kyle Riker wiped sweat from his brow as he worked at a nearby console. The orbital decoys are still holding their attention, but their command ships are starting to adapt. They're coordinating better, focusing fire on what they think are our weak points. Mira's voice crackled through the comms, her tone sharp yet brimming with energy. "Commander, we've got a problem. One of their flanking groups is pushing toward the decoy fleet's edge. If they break through, they'll see the uplink relays and the real strike platforms." Elias's jaw tightened. "We can't let them reach the edge. Redirect Squadron Theta to intercept. They're already stretched thin," Mira replied. "We need more firepower." Elias's mind raced, calculating options. Every move was a risk. He turned to Kale. "Activate the suborbital rail batteries. They've been sitting in stealth for years. Time to make their debut." Kyle hesitated. "If we activate them, we'll reveal some of our ground-based capabilities." Elias's voice was firm. "We don't have a choice. Deploy them. Now." Far above Earth, in the vast blackness of space, the Dranok flanking group closed in on the edge of the decoy fleet. Their sleek, silver ships moved in perfect formation, their weapons glowing ominously as they charged for a full assault. Just as their lead frigate prepared to fire, a massive projectile tore through its hull, shattering it in an instant. The suborbital rail batteries, buried deep in Earth's surface, had come online with devastating precision. One after another, kinetic rounds ripped through the flanking group, sending explosions rippling through the vacuum of space. The Dranok ships scattered, their formation broken. On the Eviscerator, Supreme Commander Vorn Talik clenched his fists as he watched the carnage unfold on his tactical display. "What is this?" he growled. "Where is this fire coming from?" The feline officer beside him hissed softly. "Ground-based artillery, Commander. We underestimated their planetary defenses." Vorn's golden eyes narrowed. "Underestimated is an understatement. This is a coordinated effort, far beyond what we expected. Deploy the heavy bombers. Burn their surface installations to ash." In the war vault, an alert flashed across the central console. Kale's voice rang out, urgency evident. "Commander, they're deploying heavy bombers. Targets are the rail batteries." Elias's eyes narrowed. "We knew this was coming. Mira, I need you to intercept those bombers before they reach the surface." Mira's response was immediate. "On it, Commander. Theta and Gamma squadrons form up on me. We've got some bombers to kill." In the skies above Earth, Mira led her squadron into the fray. Her stealth fighter streaked through the darkness, its sleek design rendering it nearly invisible to the enemy's sensors. The heavy bombers loomed ahead, their massive frames bristling with firepower. "Focus fire on their engines," Mira commanded. "Take away their mobility first." Her squadron executed the maneuver flawlessly. Plasma fire streaked through the void, striking the bombers with precision. One by one, the massive ships faltered, their engines sputtering before erupting into fiery explosions. But the Dranok escort fighters weren't about to let them go unchallenged. "Fighters incoming!" one of Mira's pilots shouted. Mira gritted her teeth. "Stay on task. I'll handle the escorts." With breathtaking skill, Mira engaged the enemy fighters, weaving through the chaos with unparalleled precision. Her movements were fluid, almost instinctive, as she dodged incoming fire and retaliated with devastating accuracy. Within moments, the skies were filled with debris from destroyed Dranok ships. "Bombers are neutralized," Mira reported. Returning to formation, Elias's voice came through the comms, steady and commanding. "Good work, Captain. Hold your position and prepare for the next wave." Despite their setbacks, the Dranok fleet refused to retreat. Their commanders, driven by pride and fear of failure, doubled down on their efforts. Massive capital ships moved into position, their weapons charging for a full-scale bombardment of Earth's surface. The Galactic Council's overconfidence was now tempered with desperation, but Elias saw an opportunity. "They're overcommitting," Elias said, his voice calm but laced with determination. "Kyle, bring the orbital strike platforms online. Target their command ships." Kale's hands flew over the controls, activating Earth's most advanced weaponry. Hidden in plain sight within the decoy fleet, the orbital strike platforms powered up, their sleek designs cloaked in advanced stealth fields. These platforms represented the pinnacle of humanity's ingenuity, AI-controlled systems capable of delivering devastating precision strikes. On the Eviscerator, alarms blared as the orbital strike platforms opened fire. Beams of energy lanced through the void, striking the Dranok command ships with surgical precision. Explosions lit up the battlefield as the Galactic Fleet's cohesion began to crumble. "Impossible," Vorn muttered, his voice a mix of disbelief and fury. "Where did they get this technology?" the feline officer hissed, her tone filled with unease. "They've been hiding it. For how long, we don't know, but this is no backwater planet." Vorn slammed a fist onto the console. "Pull the fleet back into a defensive formation. We need to regroup." In the war vault, cheers erupted as the orbital strike platforms turned the tide of battle, but Elias remained stoic, his focus unyielding. "This isn't over," he said. "The Dranok are retreating for now, but they'll come back with a new strategy. We need to stay ahead." Kyle approached, his expression troubled. "Commander, the saboteur we detected earlier, I think they've activated a secondary system. If it triggers, it could compromise our entire orbital network." Elias's eyes hardened. "Can you neutralize it?" "I'll try," Kale replied, his tone grim. "But we may need Mira's team to handle it manually." Elias nodded. "Coordinate with her. We can't afford any vulnerabilities." Meanwhile, on the Eviscerator, Supreme Commander Vorn Talek convened an emergency council of his officers. The room buzzed with tension as they reviewed the battle data. "We've been outmaneuvered at every turn," Vorn said, his voice low but dangerous. "Earth is not the primitive world we thought it was. They've been hiding their true power." The feline officer spoke cautiously. "If we retreat now, the Council will see it as weakness." Vorn's golden eyes glowed with anger. "Then we don't retreat. We adapt. Prepare the flagship for direct engagement. If they want a fight, we'll give them one." As the Dranok fleet prepared for a final desperate assault, Elias and his team braced for the most critical phase of the battle. The stakes had never been higher, but humanity's resolve burned brighter than ever. "Hold the line," Elias said, his voice resolute. "We're not just fighting for survival. We're fighting to show the galaxy who we truly are." The war vault was electric with tension as the Dranok fleet regrouped for its final assault. The faint hum of advanced systems filled the room, punctuated by the rapid clacking of keys and clipped voices reporting data. On the main display, holographic projections of the battlefield flickered with alarming intensity. The Galactic Fleet's flagship, the Eviscerator, loomed at the heart of the formation, an ominous reminder of the Dranok's overwhelming power. Elias Voss stood at the helm, his expression as sharp and unyielding as ever. He understood the stakes of this moment. Humanity's survival hung by a thread, and every move he made would determine whether Earth endured or burned. "Status report," Elias demanded, his voice cutting through the din. Kale Riker adjusted his glasses and scanned the latest data. "The Dranok fleet is reassembling into a wedge formation. It's a textbook strategy to punch through our orbital defenses and hit the surface directly." Captain Mira Ericks, her face still flushed from her last sortie, leaned over the tactical console. "They're betting on brute force. If they concentrate everything on one push, they could break through." Elias's blue eyes narrowed. "Not if we hit them first." "Kyle, is the primary fleet in position?" Kyle's fingers danced across the console, pulling up a new display. A smile tugged at the corners of his mouth. "They're ready, Commander. All systems are green." "Good." Elias straightened, his voice filled with quiet determination. "It's time." In orbit above Earth, the Dranok fleet advanced. Hundreds of sleek silver ships glinted against the blackness of space, their engines blazing with malevolent purpose. At the center of their formation, the Eviscerator emitted an eerie glow as it charged its main cannon. Supreme Commander Vorn Talek stood on the bridge, his golden eyes fixed on the holographic projection of Earth. "Begin the assault," Vorn ordered, his tone cold and deliberate. "They've delayed us long enough." The Dranok fleet surged forward, their weapons charging. Explosions rocked the remnants of the decoy fleet as the galactic forces unleashed a torrent of plasma fire, carving a path through the debris. Vorn allowed himself a faint smirk, but then the battlefield changed. From the dark void of space, Earth's hidden fleet emerged. Massive warships materialized from stealth mode, their surfaces gleaming with a mix of angular human engineering and advanced alien-inspired technology. Smaller AI-driven drones flanked the ships, their movements sharp and precise, like a swarm of metallic hornets. The Tempest, Earth's flagship, led the charge. Its colossal frame bristled with weaponry, and its engines burned like twin suns. The sight was a testament to humanity's ingenuity and resilience, a force that had been forged in the shadows, waiting for this moment to strike. On the Eviscerator, alarms blared as the Earth fleet appeared. Vorn's smirk vanished, replaced by a mask of cold fury. "What is this?" he growled, his claws digging into the edge of the console. The feline officer beside him hissed softly. "Stealth technology, far more advanced than anything we anticipated." Vorn's golden eyes burned with rage. "No matter. Crush them." In the war vault, cheers erupted as Earth's fleet made its grand entrance, but Elias remained stoic. He couldn't afford to celebrate. "Not yet. Mira, you're up," Elias said, his tone sharp. Mira saluted with a grin. "You got it, Commander." Her voice crackled over the comms as she addressed her squadron. "All right, team. Let's show them what Earth can do. Target their forward line and keep them guessing." In her sleek stealth fighter, Mira led the charge. She wove through the chaos of the battlefield, her ship's advanced systems allowing her to outmaneuver even the most agile Dranok fighters. Plasma blasts lit up the void as her squadron engaged the enemy, carving through their ranks with surgical precision. Behind her, Earth's warships unleashed their full might. Railguns fired kinetic projectiles that tore through Dranok armor, while advanced energy cannons delivered devastating blows. The AI drones swarmed enemy frigates, disabling their engines and targeting systems with pinpoint accuracy. On the Tempest, Captain Elias Voss coordinated the fleet's movements, his voice calm but commanding. "Maintain formation. Prioritize their heavy frigates. Cut off their support." The Dranok fleet struggled to adapt. For every Earth warship they destroyed, two more seemed to take its place, their sleek designs blending seamlessly with the darkness of space. The galactic forces, accustomed to overwhelming their enemies with brute force, found themselves outmatched by Earth's precision and ingenuity. As the battle raged on, Elias turned his attention to the Eviscerator. The Dranok flagship was a behemoth of destruction, its main cannon capable of obliterating entire cities with a single shot. If Earth's forces were to secure victory, the Eviscerator had to be neutralized. "Kyle, what's the status of the strike team?" Elias asked. Kyle pulled up a new display, showing a squad of heavily armed operatives aboard a stealth shuttle. "They're en route to the Eviscerator. ETA is 5 minutes. Elias nodded. "Good. Once they're aboard, have them disable the main cannon. If that thing fires, it's over." Kyle hesitated. "Commander, if the team fails..." "They won't fail," Elias interrupted, his voice like steel. "They can't." On the Eviscerator, Vorn Talek's frustration boiled over as Earth's fleet continued to dismantle his forces. He turned to his officers, his voice a growl. "Prepare the main cannon. Target their flagship." The feline officer's ears flattened. "But Commander, if we divert power to the cannon..." "Do it!" Vorn roared. The bridge shook as the main cannon powered up, its energy core glowing with a malevolent red light. But before it could fire, an alert blared across the ship. Intruders. Deep within the Eviscerator, Earth's strike team moved with deadly efficiency. Clad in advanced combat armor, they fought their way through waves of Dranok soldiers, their weapons blazing. At the helm was Lieutenant Harris, his sharp eyes scanning for threats as he led the team toward the cannon's control room. "Stay sharp," Harris said, his voice steady. "We're almost there." The team breached the control room, neutralizing the guards with precision fire. Harris approached the console, planting a series of charges around the cannon's power core. "Charges set," Harris reported. "Detonation in 60 seconds. Back on the Tempest, Elias watched the countdown with bated breath. The Eviscerator loomed on the main display, its main cannon glowing ominously. "Come on," Elias muttered. "Get out of there." With only seconds to spare, the strike team boarded their shuttle and escaped. The charges detonated in a brilliant explosion, ripping through the Eviscerator's main cannon and rendering it useless. The Dranok flagship shuddered, its systems faltering as secondary explosions spread through its hull. In the war vault, a wave of relief swept through the room as the main display showed the Eviscerator in flames. "Commander, the flagship is crippled," Kyle said, his voice filled with triumph. Elias nodded, his expression unchanging. "Good. Press the advantage. Let's finish this." As Earth's fleet closed in on the remaining Dranok ships, Supreme Commander Vorn Talek realized the battle was lost. His forces were in disarray, his flagship crippled, and his enemies relentless. With a heavy heart, he gave the order he had hoped to avoid. "All ships retreat," Vorn commanded. "We've underestimated them." Earth's fleet watched as the galactic forces limped away, their pride and arrogance shattered. For the first time in history, humanity had faced the might of the galaxy, and won. In the war vault, Elias allowed himself a small, weary smile. The battle was over, but the war for Earth's place in the galaxy had just begun. The battlefield was quiet now, though the scars of the battle remained. The void of space above Earth was littered with the debris of shattered Dranok warships and the faint, dying embers of plasma fire. What remained of the galactic fleet limped away into hyperspace, their pride and arrogance obliterated by a planet they had once deemed insignificant. In the war vault, the tension finally gave way to relief. For a moment, there was silence as the crew processed the reality of what had just occurred. Then, cheers erupted. Technicians hugged one another. Strategists clapped. And even Kale Riker allowed himself a rare smile. But Commander Elias Voss remained stoic. He stood at the center of the room, his gaze fixed on the main display where Earth's victorious fleet was returning to their hidden orbital positions. The relief of victory couldn't erase the weight of what had been lost, or what was still to come. "Kyle, damage report," Elias ordered, his voice calm and measured despite the jubilation around him. Kale's fingers flew over the console. "Losses were significant but not catastrophic. We lost 3 of our orbital strike platforms and 26 drones. Fighter squadrons took heavy casualties, nearly 40%, but most of the critical assets are intact." "And the Tempest?" Elias asked, his eyes narrowing. "Minor damage to the port side," Kale replied. "She'll need repairs, but she's operational." Elias nodded. "Good. Begin recovery operations. I want all surviving fighters and drones accounted for." Kyle hesitated. "Commander, with respect, we just won. Shouldn't we take a moment to acknowledge what we've achieved?" Elias finally turned to face his team. The room fell silent under his sharp gaze. "We didn't win a war today. We won a battle. A decisive one, yes, but the Dranok will be back. And the Galactic Council will no longer underestimate us. We need to be ready for what comes next." The crew absorbed his words, the weight of their reality settling back into place. Mira Ericks, leaning against a console, crossed her arms and gave Elias a small smirk. "Always the optimist, huh, Commander?" "Optimism has nothing to do with it," Elias replied evenly. "Survival does." Above Earth, the recovery effort was in full swing. The Tempest moved methodically through the debris field, deploying drones to collect salvageable materials and rescue escape pods. The shattered remnants of the Dranok fleet were hauled in for analysis, their technology a potential goldmine for Earth's engineers. Captain Elias Voss, standing on the bridge of the Tempest, observed the scene with a mix of pride and weariness. His crew worked tirelessly to coordinate the recovery, their faces showing the strain of battle. "Sir," one of the officers said, "we've picked up an emergency signal from a Dranok escape pod. It's Supreme Commander Vorn Talik." Darian's brow furrowed. "He survived?" The officer nodded. "Barely. The pod's life support is failing." Darian hesitated, then activated the comm to the war vault. "Commander Voss, we've located Vorn Talik in an escape pod." "Orders?" "In the war vault." Elias's jaw tightened. For a moment he said nothing, weighing the implications. Capturing Vorn could be a strategic advantage, but it also risked provoking the Dranok further. "Bring him in," Elias said at last. Alive, Vorn Talik, once the proud supreme commander of the Dranok fleet, now sat in a secure chamber aboard the Tempest. His golden eyes, dulled by exhaustion, burned with a mix of hatred and begrudging respect. As Elias entered the room, the 2 men regarded each other in silence, the tension thick between them. "You fought well," Vorn said finally, his voice hoarse. "Better than anyone expected. Underestimation is a common flaw among your kind," Elias replied, his tone cold. Vorn's lips twisted into a faint smirk. "And arrogance is a flaw among yours. Do you really think this victory changes anything? The Council will not accept this humiliation. They will return, and when they do, it will be with a force you cannot hope to match." Elias leaned forward, his blue eyes piercing. "Let them. We've spent decades preparing for this. Every move you made today, we anticipated. Every strength you brought to bear, we countered. If the Council wants to turn Earth into a battlefield, we'll make them regret it." Vorn's smirk faltered. For the first time, doubt flickered in his eyes. Elias stood. "You'll remain here as our guest until further notice, and I suggest you use this time to reconsider your position, because when the Council comes back, they'll be fighting a humanity that no longer plays by their rules." On Earth, the atmosphere was bittersweet. The streets of the cities remained largely untouched, thanks to the sacrifices made in orbit, but the loss of so many fighters and soldiers cast a shadow over the victory. Families mourned their loved ones even as they celebrated their planet's survival. In a quiet moment, Elias stood on the observation deck of the war vault, gazing at the stars. Mira joined him, her presence as steadying as ever. "You did it," she said softly. "We're still here because of you." Elias shook his head. "We're here because of all of us. Every pilot, every engineer, every technician who gave their all. This wasn't my victory, it was theirs." Mira studied him for a moment, her smirk replaced by something softer. "You know, most people would let themselves enjoy the win, but you're already thinking about the next fight." Elias's jaw tightened. "The council will regroup. This was just the beginning. And when they come back?" Mira asked. Elias's voice was quiet but resolute. "We'll be ready." The Galactic Council chambers were in uproar. Representatives shouted over one another, their voices a mix of outrage and disbelief. Reports of Earth's victory had spread quickly, leaving the once smug council scrambling for answers. High Chancellor Valrek slammed his clawed hand onto his podium, silencing the room. "Enough! This anomaly must be addressed. Earth is no longer a passive observer. They have made themselves a threat," an insectoid representative hissed. "Perhaps we underestimated their resolve." Valrek's golden eyes narrowed. Their resolve? This was not resolve. This was preparation. They've been hiding their strength, lying in wait. We must act decisively before their influence spreads. But not all members of the council agreed. A reptilian representative spoke up, his tone cautious. "And if we provoke them further, they've shown they can match us in battle. Another war could weaken us all." Valrek's gaze darkened. "Weakness is not an option. If Earth wishes to challenge us, they will face the full might of the galaxy." Back on Earth, Elias delivered a broadcast to the planet. His voice was calm, but carried the weight of authority and purpose. "Today we proved that humanity will not be subjugated. We have faced the might of the galaxy and emerged stronger. But this is only the beginning. We cannot afford complacency. The galaxy is watching and they will come again. We must be ready. For ourselves, for our future, and for the generations to come." The broadcast ended, leaving a planet united in both pride and determination. As Elias stepped away from the camera, Kale approached him, holding a tablet. "The council won't let this go. What's the plan?" Elias glanced at the stars, his expression unreadable. "We adapt, we innovate, and when they come back, we remind them why humanity was underestimated in the first place." The Tempest loomed above the recovering planet, its engines glowing softly as it prepared for repairs. Humanity had claimed its place among the stars, but the cost of that victory was a constant reminder of the fragility of peace. For now, Earth was safe, but in the vast expanse of the galaxy, new threats waited, and Elias Voss would be ready for them.